Good evening and welcome to Tobago Connect. I'm JQ, and in studio with me, of course, the man Joshua. And tonight we want to talk a bit about the dive sector, some tourism. We want to talk about the business of diving, and we want to talk about the area of underwater archaeology and underwater diving, wrecks, shipwrecks. Want to talk about all that experiences under the water. And I have a very important man here in Tobago, a very important person, very experienced. And we're going to be talking with Derek Chung. And let me welcome Derek to the program this evening. And Tobago Connect, we welcome Derek Chung. Derek, welcome.
Thanks a lot, John. Great to be on your program.
Nice. Well, Derek, a number of persons, know who you are. But I think a number of persons, the thing with this program, it goes right up the Caribbean and right into other spaces online and so on. And we have a really good following on Gael. But tell our listeners a bit about Derek. I know you came from Trinidad, but tell us what drew you to Tobago and the love of Tobago and so on. What's it?
Well, I'm born in Trinidad, as you said.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate that my parents gave me a good sound grounding in swimming. So very comfortable in the water. But it wasn't until first year university that I got an interest in scuba. And it was actually on a whim with some friends.
Really?
It was a bit of a dare. And so we got into scuba, and I found that I had a love for it. I took to it. I had a natural affinity to it, and didn't look back after that. So
So what did you study when you were in university?
That might be a little bit of a sore point.
No.
Wasn't in university for too long. Like a lot of young guys coming out of school. Wasn't sure what I wanted, what direction I wanted to head into. Went into engineering, because my education was in the sciences.
Right.
And after a couple of years of that, realized that was not quite what I wanted to do.
Right.
Still searching to find what I wanted to do in life.
But then you found what you wanted to.
Well, I went into, would you believe I went into banking?
Oh, okay.
So I was in banking for a couple of years. And at that time, I was already diving.
Right.
And got the opportunity to go into business with scuba. And that would have been back in 87.
Ooh.
So I quit my job as a lending officer, and no, I didn't give myself a loan. So I quit that job and went full bore into scuba.
Wow.
But it was an interesting time, because in 87, if you recall, A&R Robinson was the PM.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And of course, he inherited, at that time when he came in, his administration inherited a country in the middle of a recession.
Yes.
We're in an oil recession, and he had to take some very
strong decisions.
strong, unpopular decisions. One being value-added tax at 15%. But he did have he did talk about the need to diversify, and he actually put his money where his mouth was. He followed through on that, and he made low interest loans available to anybody who was getting into tourism. And so as a young guy with virtually no money in my pocket, I was able to access loans from the government to get into scuba. And that's it's an opportunity that I appreciated.
Yeah. The thing about that, Derek, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, because scuba diving, as a niche of Tobago's tourism, I think birding and diving are two of the more popular niches. Of course, that doesn't discount festivals and eco and all the other branches. But as a niche, tell us about your experience over the last 20 years or so, because you've been operating here.
Yeah, I wasn't the first person to open a dive center in Tobago by any means. But I think I came in at the right time.
Right time.
In the late 80s is just about when diving tourism as a niche really started to gain some traction. And We had, at that point in time, it was TIDCO was the agency that was responsible for marketing tourism.
Tourism, yes.
And they did a lot for the dive sector. In actual fact, because of TIDCO, we were the first Caribbean island to have a hyperbaric chamber specifically for the recreational diving market.
In Tobago?
In Tobago.
Wow, that
was a major investment.
That's a major,
And we had really good presence in all of the international dive shows and that sort of thing.
Right.
So we saw that growing, and right around that period as well, we had a lot of development of hotels. So we had Grafton and LeGrand broke ground and came, developed there, and some of the other hotels were being refurbished and so forth, and the tourism trust was really starting to move. So,
but I would imagine that when you went to these trade shows, right, or whenever you ended up on a TIDCO marketing trip, the presence of having that chamber was a very, very big plus for the island.
I don't necessarily think it was a major reason for people to choose Tobago, but certainly it was a plus.
Yeah, a plus, and that's what I mean.
Definitely a plus. We were, in the early days, of course, we still had to find our footing, so to speak, because we had no experience internationally. We knew the diving in Tobago was good.
Right.
We didn't know how good it was, and also in terms of experience as well. So I remember in the early days being very cautious, speaking to experienced visiting divers, because you don't want to look out at time, Yeah. And in conversation, this person be saying, well, I've been diving for 15 years, and I'm going, wow, I've only been diving for 5.
Right.
And he'd go like, yeah, and I've been diving all over the world and so forth, and I've logged 600 dives in that time, and I go like, hang on a second, I did 600 dives last year. So then I had to reassess things a little bit and say, we're not backward here. We're backward here.
It's 5 years, but I do a lot more diving.
Yeah. So, and I've had the opportunity to dive throughout the Caribbean as well. I've been Jamaica, Barbados, Grenada, Belize. And abroad as well, as far afield as Canada.
Right.
Great place up there.
So in terms of dive sites in Tobago, for many of the visitors who may not even realize that Tobago is a gem for diving, but it is, tell our visitors some of those sites that really have made. I know we always hearing about the largest brain coral, right? We always hearing about Speyside and the largest brain coral and the special reef they have out there and so on. But tell our visitors.
Speyside is a very special dive location.
Okay.
Coral reef there is spectacular. There's no doubt about that. And yes, it still has.
Is it better than Buko Reef?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Well, you've been under there,
The thing about it is that, geographically we're running at an angle. So we're running sort of like southwest to northeast.
Yes.
Yeah. And Speyside is further north than the Crown Point area. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they have less influence from the Orinoco River. So we have all this fresh water coming from the Orinoco River. The delta is over 100 miles wide.
Right.
And so we get a lot of rainfall in South America, and that flows down. And that's why the waters around Trinidad are so turbid, right? And of course, on Crown Point, water is not as clear as in Speyside as often, right? And corals need clean, clear water to thrive. And the nice thing about corals as well is that not only do they have the clear water, but they also get an influx of nutrients as well from the Orinoco.
Right.
So that's made Speyside a very, very special place for coral growth. And without a doubt, bar none, the coral growth up there is best on the island. Yeah. But that's not to say that the diving in the other parts of the island are spectacular as well. So if we went up to, let's say we went to St. Giles, Charlottesville, the Sisters.
Right.
There you'll find more rock formation. So it's vertical rock faces. Closest thing to wall diving that we have. So it's all rock with encrusting sponge and coral growth. So it's a different thing, but it's also very, very, very pleasing to the eye.
Right.
When we come down to the southern side of the island now, we're down at Diver's Thirst, Diver's Dream. Now we have rock ridges, sand valleys, dense marine life. You see one grunt is thousands of grunts, you see.
Right,
you know,
right.
And we also see quite a lot of large marine life on the south side. So whether it be turtles, spotted eagle rays, manta rays, sharks, variety of sharks, nurse sharks, Caribbean reef, blacktip reef at times. There's something for everybody here. So if a visiting diver came, John, I would really encourage them to dive all ends of the island.
All the ends.
Yes, I'd definitely do that.
That's like the complete experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, the complete dive package.
You're down there for 2 weeks, 1 week up in the north, 1 week down in the south.
Yeah, that sounds really, really exciting. You know, Derek, some years ago I asked you, tell me, and you actually told me, tell me some of these unfortunate encounters you had under the water. And I think you gave me one with an eel, if I'm not wrong. But maybe, yeah. I was asking you that, especially when we were talking about the shipwrecks and so, which we are going to come to. But tell us, you know, some of those, because I love to hear stories.
Well, first of all, you know, the marine life doesn't pose a danger to the divers. Really.
Okay.
So, I mean, I've swum with 12-foot hammerhead sharks in schools, as close as you are to me.
Really?
Silky sharks, bull, blacktip reef, Caribbean reef, not an issue. All right?
Really?
Yeah, not an issue. Moray eels, they have very impressive set of teeth, and potentially, if a moray eel were to bite you, it would be quite serious.
Right.
But moray eels don't come and they ain't bothered with us. They're not bothering with us. All marine life, once we respect their space, they respect us. That's
wow.
I think that's fair.
No. But let's talk about that a bit. I mean, explain how that happens. But you just said some hammerhead sharks. You're just about 3 feet from them,
and they
have absolutely absolutely nothing with you.
No, come cruise right past. No problem. Not an issue.
Wow.
Now, if you were engaging in spearfishing,
right,
maybe you might have some issues in terms of course, you have the scent of freshly killed fish in the water. You have vibrations, distress vibrations from fish when they're shot, that sort of thing. But that doesn't bother me because we don't spearfish.
Right.
There's no laws against spearfishing here. But as a matter of policy, we don't spearfish.
Right.
When we have clients with us.
When you have clients.
And certainly we're not going to spearfish on sites that we frequent to take our clients. I need something to show clients.
Right.
No, I'm not against sparing a fish for dinner. I mean, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But there are many other places that we can go that we can do that activity that are not usable for clients.
You're making me excited. I really want to come and do this dive with you. But tell me, what protective gear, what instruments do you all use just in case?
No problems. No issues with marine life. None at all.
No issue at all.
None at all.
I don't know.
All right, so let's talk about this more real thing.
You're right.
Back in the day, there was a very popular magazine called Skin Diver Magazine, and one of the ads inside, I remember it clearly, guy from down in Florida Keys, Captain Slate. And his advertisement was a photograph of himself with a humongous green moray wrapped completely around his body with his head, moray eel's head, right next to him like this. And I went, I could do that. I can do that. And so I proceeded to find a resident. There was a green moray that hung around a particular spot that I knew. So started to hand feed him. And within 3 feeding sessions, that eel would leave the reef, swim up to me mid-water, and start to poke around my equipment looking for food. And at that point in time, I said, this is probably not a great idea. Why? Because you could have John, not you, John Doe, swimming past, no intention, don't even know the eel's there, no intention of feeding this eel, swim by. This eel's going to say, oh, divers, lunchtime. He's going to free swim, he's going to come wrap himself around John. John's going to go like, ah! Eel's going to go, ah! Yeah. John's going to get bit, not a good ending, right?
Yeah,
we can change fish behavior, marine life behavior can be changed very, very quickly. We have to be very careful with that. It goes back to the old adage, don't feed the bears.
Yeah.
Don't feed the fish.
Yeah. they have that, I went to this, where they have the alligators in Florida. I forgot the name of the place. But you go out on the boat, and that's the first thing they tell you. Do not feed the alligators.
Yeah.
don't the crux. If you do that, you set a precedent which is bad for all the other visitors to it. So you're right. Yeah, I can see that.
But most marine life injuries to divers would be cuts, scrapes, or stings. Minor things. That's the reality of it. And if we exercise,
what about manta rays?
Oh, manta rays are. They're. I guess the majestic would be the word that immediately pops to mind. That's pretty cool. We've got a few knocking around.
So
in Speyside, they'll be about, on average in Speyside, I would say they'd be like 6 to 10 foot wingspan.
6 to 10?
10 foot wingspan.
Wow.
That's not a big one. Down on our end, down in the Crown Point area, like right now in Mount Irving, at this point in time, we've got a couple of knocking around there right now. One's about a 4 foot, it's a baby.
Yeah, they're always around there.
Other one's about a 6 foot wingspan. Yeah. We don't see them.
I remember people running out of Mount Irving when they come in.
And Grange Bay. Grange Bay as well. Yeah.
And
but there was one that came past in Storby a few years ago that, everybody scampered.
Wow.
10 foot's a small one. Well, not small. It's pretty sizable.
So the manta is not the sting?
No, manta doesn't have a sting. You have the
So what's the one
stingray
that damaged the guy?
Steve Owen.
Right. What's that?
That would be it's not the one that we have here, but it would be something similar.
Just sting or manta? Stingray. Right.
They have a barb down the length of the
barb,
tail.
right.
Yeah. So the family never released the video, and they never spoke about how the incident actually happened. But I'm fairly certain I know how it happened. And it's kind of like because I've been in diving so long and I know marine life behavior, and I've also filmed underwater. I've worked with film crews underwater, so I know how things work. And
wow,
it's a straightforward thing. If you're filming something, you don't want a butt shot. You want a frontal 3/4. Right. So we're doing this podcast right now. If the camera were behind us, it's a different viewpoint.
Right.
It might work for a little bit, but it's not going to work for the entire thing. Yeah. So we want a frontal 3/4.
Yeah.
So there's Steve. The stingrays are typically on the ground. So there's Steve. He's swimming up behind the stingray. Right.
Ah, okay.
So he's slightly above. Right. Stingray is going to be leading. He's going to be slightly above in this sort of position. Cameraman's in the front. He's trying to get that frontal 3/4 view.
Right.
We use really wide angle lenses. And that's so that we can get closer to our subject matter, because water is not as clear as air is. So if you want clarity of image, you need to be close.
That's
you
right.
need to be close. You need to have a wide lens to capture the entire image.
Yes.
All right. So
understood.
So that's what's going to happen. So the camera's going to be up close. There's a ray swimming along the ground. Can't go down. Steve's on top of him. Yeah. Swimming ahead. Okay. Cameraman's in the front.
Right. It's trapped.
And he's going to make a quick turn right or left. And when you do that, tail's going to come up. The tail acts like a bit like a counterbalance.
Right.
Tail comes up, and Steve's in the wrong place, and unfortunately gets stuck in the heart and doesn't make it. Yeah. So that's what I believe happened.
Right.
It would be
logical. No, it's a fair assessment. I mean, we're not saying that is what happened, but it's a fair assessment. So tell me a bit about the dive niche now from the business perspective. The fact that COVID came, yes, but tell me first about the business side, because I know you ran the business. And then tell me a bit about when COVID came, what happened? And
I think the height would have been back 2005,
yeah,
2006.
That's when it was. 25,
the peak of our
2005, 2000. Because that's when we had the highest numbers of international visitors.
Overnight.
Yes.
3 nights or more. That's not counting cruise.
Yes.
Right.
It was that period.
Yes.
We went right up to 18.
So I think we were, if I recollect, we were probably somewhere around 14 dive centers operating at that time. And that's not counting individuals who had their side hustle going. So they didn't have an official dive center. They were instructors and dive masters and so forth, and they had equipment and rent boats and so on. But they didn't operate a storefront.
Right.
All right. So we had 14
solid guys,
yeah. And then, of course, we had a decline in tourism, and dive centers started to fall by the wayside because, of course, if we don't have the numbers, something has to give. So,
what was the average now? I mean, guesstimate.
Right now, in terms of if you wanted to walk into a dive center for a dive now, we have 3 dive centers plus Eric. Right. Eric is the Environmental Research Institute. Yeah. So they're sort of like a half of dive center. They're really a research facility, but they do recreational. They do tuition and so forth as well. So Alush, exactly. So besides Eric, would be 3 dive centers. That's it.
Right. Wow, that's 14. A big drop, boy.
That's a big drop. But that's 14 from 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
If we looked at 2019, we had 5, I think.
Right.
5 or 6.
Right.
At that point in time.
So what you are saying is, beyond the fact that from the early 2000s, we had 14 and then we came down to probably 5. You're saying when COVID came now, we're down to
3.
We're down to 3.
Yeah, and if things persist the way they're going right now,
we might be down to what?
I don't know. I don't want to go there. I don't want to jinx myself.
but I mean,
I want to put goat mouth on myself.
No, Derek, come on. But I mean, how did you wind your way through the COVID? I mean, how did you do it?
I mean, with great difficulty would be an understatement.
Right. So there was a time when you couldn't go at all.
We were closed.
Right.
I mean, we had I think 3 beach closures. We had 3 beach closures in all. Yes. Right. So in the first instance, when everything kind of fell apart at the end of March 2020, it was tough. But remember, we were in the middle of a high season, right? We had end of December, January, February, March. So when that first beach shutdown came for COVID, you just came off of a season, so at least you have some resources available to you. You just came out to your high season. So that wasn't too bad. Second one was, of course, much tougher because, of course, by that time, resources are dwindling rather rapidly.
Yes.
And this last one was extremely difficult because it's also the longest.
Right. Yes.
Now think about this. When we had the beach lockdown the second time, central government gave the glass bottom reef boats guys a bly.
I know. Yes.
It lasted for about 2 weeks. It wasn't too long. The last time they gave them a bly, and they also gave the Caroni Swamp boys a bly.
Right.
I guess they make some noise. And when beaches were finally reopened after some 10 or 11 months, from 5 to 12.
Yes, you had just the morning time, 12, and then it went to 2.
Boat operators weren't allowed to operate.
Oh,
so a lot of people think that when the beaches were open, that everybody went back to work. That's not the case.
Well, I thought you all went diving in the morning.
No, we weren't.
Oh.
Boat operations, boat tours were prohibited.
Right.
Then they moved it to 2 o'clock. And then they opened up to the glass bottom boats for the 50% capacity.
Right.
And it's only in the last 2 weeks, in actual fact, when they moved it to 6 o'clock, in actual fact, I'm not even sure if that's law, because I was trying to find the Monday that they opened up and they moved to 6. I was trying to find the new health ordinance on the Ministry of Health website and also Legal Affairs website. I couldn't find it, because in the previous ones, they were extending hours, but they were not allowing boat operations. Okay. Then they were allowed glass bottom boats. So I actually don't know if if dive boats are allowed right now.
That shouldn't be hard to find out. That should be pretty easy.
I'm sure it must be posted by now. So I need to go and check that.
But you are operating now?
Yeah, in the last 2 weeks.
In the last 2 weeks. And how has business been?
Fortunately, we've had some work. Yeah, we have, and not just domestic,
right?
Also international. So,
great!
Folks that came off the BA flights.
Good.
A few folks from that.
So you would say it's a slow but certain start.
It's slow. We need to open up bigger though.
It's slow, but it's getting bigger. We'll get bigger. Yeah, I mean, this thing sounds so exciting. I really like how you describe the wall. I like how you describe the valleys and the fact that in Speyside, the effects of the Orinoco. I love how you talk about that, because I think that's what kind of makes you really, somebody really interested in going to experience this really, 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 really wonderful dive experience, throughout the island. And I like how you put it. You could tackle the south, the north, the east, that should be great.
Well, I'll say something here, John.
Yeah.
The thing about it is that I would tell folks that our water clarity is not as good year-round as our northern neighbors.
Okay.
That is a fact.
Right.
Okay. That's not to say that the water clarity is terrible. It can actually be quite
so
good.
we put that down as one of our weaknesses.
Well, it's
A slight weakness.
I wouldn't. Yeah, you can say
Right.
that, but the cause of that is, of course, the Orinoco.
Right.
Right. But the pro side of it is that we have more fish density and more fish diversity. So what we give up in visibility, in water clarity,
I love that.
we take back on the other side
Yeah.
with density and diversity.
Yeah.
So I had 2 marine biologists diving with me over the course of a couple of weeks. This is a few years ago. And they did a total of 14 dives with me on the south side. We never went to the northern end, which is the quote-unquote the better,
Right.
better coral reef, better water clarity, right? Did 14 dives with me down on the south side. I wouldn't tell you which island they were working on, right? So, and I asked them at the end, I said, what did you think? Because water clarity was probably at that time, wasn't great. It was probably about 40 foot, meaning that you could only see 40 foot distance.
Right.
That particular time. It was rainy season.
Wow.
And they said they were extremely happy. They see more diversity of species in one dive than they see in 3 and 4 dives
In another part
in
of
another Caribbean island where they worked.
Right.
And that told
No,
me,
that's a big advantage.
That told me a lot.
That's a
I
big
had a German chap
advantage.
diving with me last week, and
Yeah.
his thing was, like birders, they check species off.
Yes.
So I saw
yes.
this red-billed tropic bird, check.
Yeah.
Frigate bird, check.
Yes.
And they do that.
They
and
do that,
And
yes.
they travel to destinations to be able to observe
do the comparison,
species
yeah.
that they're missing on the checklist.
Right.
So I had a German chap here with me last week, and he does the same thing, but with marine fish.
Right.
Right? I was able to find him 7 different species of fish here in Tobago, in would have been 6 dives, 7 different species that he hadn't seen before. So it was a matter of, he said, Derek, I want to see this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, we can't see that one because that one's pelagic. That's open ocean. You're not going to see that on the reef. But this one I can find. That one I can find.
And you did.
Yeah. Found them 7 different species.
No, but what you just said there, those are the kinds of things that we have to now find a way to make the narrative and articulate that as one of the one of the contributory advantages of Tobago's tourism in context of dive. I think that's great. What you just said. What you give up on visibility, you get on diversity and density. That to me is so powerful.
Yeah, the thing about it as well too is that you don't want to get too. It's always nice to have very clear objectives.
Yeah,
it's always very good. And so, like in this particular case, the individual says, "I want to see this, that, and the other," and I was able to find that for him. But at the same point in time, it leaves you open for disappointment. If I can't find those species for him, because there are no fences in the ocean.
Right,
fish might be here today, not there tomorrow.
But the same thing with the bird.
Same thing with the birds, right? So you could be open to if the person is too narrow, focused too narrowly.
Right.
It kind of sets yourself up for a less than ideal experience, let's say.
Right.
One of the things I always tell my students, diving has many facets. When you learn to scuba dive, it's just a vehicle. That's what it is. It's like driving. First time you drive a car, gives just certain excitement. Yeah, you're in control of a machine.
Yes.
But in actual fact, the car is a vehicle to take it to go and see a tanty, to go across it to the cinema, to go to a restaurant, to go to work. It transports you. It lets you experience other things. So scuba, learning how to use the scuba equipment in the beginning is exciting. You have the sense of weightlessness. You can actually breathe underwater. You're doing something that a lot of folks have not done. Sense of adventure. But then that's a vehicle to do other things, whether it be observing marine life, whether it be doing something along the lines of archaeology or historical or wrecks or something of that nature. So some folks, they're really into observing large marine life. They want to see manta rays. They want to see whale sharks. They want to see big stuff, right? But if that's all you want to see...
Hey, when I come with you, I don't want to see no big stuff. You don't see no big stuff?
Attitude, you're
I'm good with it.
So if you don't see big stuff, then you'll tell yourself, well, I didn't have a good dive. I always tell my students, you might have your pet area, but always be able to shift your focus into something else. Right. So if your pet thing is big stuff, and you ain't seeing big stuff, start looking at small stuff. Start looking at fish behavior.
Right.
So it might be something that's common, but you're seeing it exhibiting a behavior that I hadn't seen before. So that's something that's new. Right? And if you can shift your focus to different aspects of the marine environment, because most visitors come down to observe marine life, yeah? Then you will always have a good dive. Right. Why set yourself up to have a poor dive or potentially have a poor dive?
I like that approach. Yeah, and you set them up before the dive. By talking to them that way.
And the trick there on my side is to have all of the safety aspects.
Right, yes.
But also make it fun. And also have it in a way that is maybe not rigid. You know, so it's a sort of a balance. So you have to kind of have to read people as well.
Right.
You know.
So you just said something that allowed me to segue on a question. What's the COVID protocol for dive? What what's the COVID protocol? Because I know you'll have all this. So what does that entail?
All right. So initially when we had the COVID outbreak, we had the World Travel and Tourism Council set out guidelines. You can get certified. It was the get a stamp from them, and that was an online program. So we did that, and then CARFA came out with one, which is the Healthier, Safer Tourism, and that entails also not just doing the program but also reporting illnesses. So there's a report segment to that, requirement to that. And so our dive center is also CARFA certified.
Right.
And then we are looking at also specific to scuba.
Right.
So we turn to our training agency is PADI. We're the world's largest training agencies, bar none. And so we turn to them for their protocols. And then there's another organization called Divers Alert Network, and they're to do anything to do with the medical aspects of it.
Right.
And so we turn to their protocols as well. And so all the equipment is going to be sanitized prior to use.
I would imagine, yes.
Yeah. In our shop, it's an enclosed area, so it's going to be mask.
Mask, right.
All of our international...
Mask until you put on the...
All of our international visitors, of course, as being non-citizens of TNT, are required to be fully vaccinated coming in. Our staff are fully vaccinated.
Can you go on a dive and not vaccinated?
Yeah, you can do that, but I'd want to know that beforehand.
Oh, okay, right.
I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, you're not vaccinated, you can't die.
Right.
But I think the safety protocols are there nonetheless.
Right. Yeah.
So we're masked indoors. You know, if we're on board the boat, you're taking off your mask to put your equipment on. Yeah. And then while we're on the dive, I mean, we're underwater. No way we're gonna get COVID underwater. That ain't gonna happen. Right. No. But I haven't encountered that situation as yet where I have an unvaxxed person wanting to dive.
No. I'm really glad you spoke about that, because I think that's important to give the kind of confidence for people who want to come and have that experience. Because, let's turn a little bit to that. Some years ago, we had Tobago 1677, right?
Yeah.
And I know you had a role in that, even before that. But tell us about the role you had in that, because that's one of my pet projects, and I'm so glad that the Tobago House of Assembly has taken the decision to add antiquities to tourism and culture. I think that was a big move, and commendation there to the Chief Sec for really making that move.
Yeah.
Because I think it puts us in a place where we can start to look at those assets that we have. And this happens to be one of the areas, the assets we have below the Scarborough Harbor, and we spoke to Dr. Guy. She was actually in this program also, and we had a wonderful time on that. So tell us a bit about that. Yeah, that's another...
That same sentiment you have about adding antiquities to tourism, yes. I voiced that to the Secretary of Tourism as well.
Okay.
That was, it's a positive move, I think.
Very positive.
Unfortunately, of course, our colonial history is something of a sore point, of course. I think we haven't embraced it as we should.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, at the academic level, everybody, people are talking about decolonization, uncolonization. I mean, there are all kind of aspects about that. So, and, looking at post-colonial, but that doesn't take away from the fact, I'll tell you quite honestly, and I'm going to allow you to respond, but I recall when one of the officials from I won't name which embassy at this point, but we had this bronze cannon, and it's still there, right on the port. Yeah. And I was there with Mr. Wilson when he was asked, they would like to have that cannon go back to the country, that it came because it belongs to one of the ships. Yeah. And his answer was very solid. Yeah. No, that is I mean, this is where it ended up, and that's where it's going to stay. Yeah. But that's part of our history,
But there's an argument for that as well.
Yes. Of course, there are arguments. Because...
By international law.
Well, and you're right. I'm saying that there are some discussions now about things going back to...
Not necessarily. Let me clarify that, John. Thing about it is that, when we grew up, especially in the 70s and so on, there was a lot of treasure hunting, and as kids growing up at that time, you were like, man, treasure, gold, silver, and so forth. And they have this sort of thing of finders, keepers, losers, weepers, right?
Yes.
All right. So, and that would be, you can say that for, let's say, for merchant shipping, for private shipping. But for sovereign ships, that would be naval ships, flag ships.
Right.
International law, regardless of where they lay, still belong to the sovereign nation. So, for example, we have a Dutch ship laying in Scarborough Harbor. It's a flagship.
Right.
You can't get any closer to being underwater to shore. You're right off the shoreline, right? So it's no doubt that it's in our territorial waters, right?
That's right.
Right. But because it's a flagship, it still does belong to the Dutch.
Okay.
So what do you do?
Right.
So that's where your diplomacy now going to start to come into play, right? So countries in the past, what they've done is they'll say, you recognize that this ship belongs to me because it's a sovereign ship. And I recognize that it's a part of your history. We have a shared history there.
Right.
And so let's work on this together. Share the information. Because, for example, a bronze cannon.
But that's the only way it can happen.
They have bronze cannons back home.
Yes.
It's not to say they don't have any bronze cannons, right?
Yeah.
They may not have a bronze cannon from that ship.
But
they have plenty.
Correct.
They have plenty examples of bronze cannons. All right.
Correct.
So, but the information about the cannon is probably more valuable than the actual cannon itself.
Right.
From an academic point of view.
No, I hear you. I hear your argument. I'm just telling you what had happened.
And it's a problem with with museums. Museums have so much stuff in the back room.
Correct.
That they can't display.
Correct.
Because it's cultural heritage.
Correct.
They can't sell it.
Correct. Yeah. No, but I was making the point. I was making the point, Derek, that even with the issue of museums, because that's a thing that's falling kind of part of what I'm doing now. There are several pieces of discussions about certain things that have religious value, that have tribal value, that have spiritual value, right? That people are saying, well, it shouldn't be in the museum, it needs to go right back here because of its value. And so there are a number of museums that are literally looking at those kinds of claims. But you're right. I mean, a lot of it is cultural diplomacy too.
Yeah, in Britain, you have a lot of course, when Britain was in Egypt, They have a lot of antiquities that they have in museums in London.
That's right.
And now, starting to, now the Egyptians saying, hey, that was ours. Yeah. You huff it. Yeah. We'd like it back.
You're right.
So there's some
right.
diplomacy that has to take place. Yeah. And so, that's what will happen. So we'll say, all right, so we have shared historical interest in this shipwreck.
Right.
Let's do this thing together. Once you recognize that still belongs to me, I will allow you to excavate it in an archaeological fashion, in a proper fashion. You share the information with me, and you have it on loan at your museum for display and so forth and so forth, as a diplomatic way.
You're viewing Tobago Connect, and we're coming to you live from the Wildlife Sanctuary, Little Tobago.